Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a different type of video where it's going to be predominantly a voiceover video, and as you've seen by the title, this video is going to be about cars that I previously owned and cars that I thought I would own, although I still may own, and future plans and just generally stuff like that. So I'm going to take you guys right back to the beginning of when I was an early teenager. So I haven't actually had a massive interest in cars all throughout my life. It sort of started when I was probably around 12, 13, 14, where I started to play more games like GTA and racing games and sim games, and started moving slightly away from your typical shooters, although I was still heavily playing those at the time as I was an early teenager. But when I was growing up, my granddad had a red Volvo V70 Estate and I absolutely loved that. And so that was like a massive love of mine, and it still is today, and I'd still love to get one, although I'd like to get a V70R. And growing up, we tended to have either German, Swedish or Japanese cars, which is sort of make you think, oh, my interest was going to be in one of those, which it partially was, although I'm going to throw a massive spanner into the works and say the first cars that I truly sort of loved and got into were actually lowriders and American muscle cars. I used to absolutely adore cars like the 1963, 1964 Impala, the Chevy SS's, the Dodge Chargers, the Chevrolet Bel Airs, all cars like that, like lowriders or non-lowriders. I love muscle cars as well. And so that was sort of at my time, the sort of massive goal was to get a lowrider, and if I'm honest with you, I sort of still have that goal because I really do still love them. I think they're really, really cool machines, although they're a hell of a lot of work, and yeah, they're a lot of they're just a lot of money and a lot of work, so I don't know, maybe one day. But when I was around 14 or 15, thinking a few years ahead when I was going to get a car, I wasn't exactly going to get a lowrider, as that wasn't exactly financially or anything like that possible. So I eventually decided I really wanted to get a Mark V Fiesta, as I loved these anyway and I thought they were really cool nippy cars, and I saw a few of them but not too many when I was growing up, and I absolutely adored them, and I thought, yeah, they're a really, really cool little hatchback, and they were affordable. But when it came to realistically looking and buying one, a lot of them that were for sale weren't really in the spec or the condition that I liked, and a lot of them had just been ragged and then, you know, just sort of absolutely sort of destroyed, and I didn't really want to get into that as a first car, having a car that was already broken and me having to fix it, because, well, I had almost no mechanical knowledge at the time, and if I'm honest with you, I don't have loads and loads of actual experience now, so I wasn't going to get myself into an absolute money pit of getting other people to do it for me and just generally having a car that breaks all the time when I'm trying to learn. So sort of after reconsidering that, I had a sort of massive spike in absolute love for JDM cars, and that sort of led me on to my next thing, which was a Mark VII Celica, which I really wanted to get one of them, and I could have done, although something else came up at the time which I'll come on to a little bit later. But yeah, essentially I really liked these. I thought they were really cool. They were, you know, pretty nippy little coupes, but they weren't actually that bad on insurance, which was sort of like a really cool thing. They started off at about 150 brake horsepower, and I think it was a 1.6 or a 1.8, and then you could get the Yamaha Gene version with 190 horsepower, which was mad. And they were also pretty reliable from sort of what I had heard, and their only sort of inherent problems that they got were with sort of suspension components, which, I mean, it's not too bad really in the sort of grand scheme of things of getting the first car, if the only downsides are their suspension components, and even then it's, you know, that was pretty rare, you know, according to everything that I researched, which is really cool. So I thought, yeah, I'm going to get a Mark VII Celica. And also in 2015 I sort of found out, or was released, about the new Civic, I think it was the 10th gen ones, the ones that had two doors and sort of they looked a bit like a computer mouse, but I used to love them. So I was thinking, you know, maybe I'll get one of those in a few years. I'll be able to afford like a finance sort of deal on one of those and have that, although I think about it now, that would have been a pretty silly idea to do, as yeah, it would have been a lot of money on everything. But yeah, I mean, I still love those, I still think they're really cool, but again, I was going through that JDM and lowrider phase in my life, so yeah, probably wouldn't have been the most practical, but yeah, I love them. And now we're going to skip to quite a few years later, where I sort of lost an interest in cars for a few years. Well, not lost interest, I still loved them and was interested in them, but I was putting more of my passion to music and just my studies in general, so I didn't really sort of pay too much attention to what was going on at that time. But yeah, a few years went past, and then I actually gained an interest again and started looking for my first car. So I still had that plan of getting the Celica, although there wasn't too many available right at the time that I was looking, so I couldn't end up getting one. But I remember one day my mum sent me an email of an auction that was sort of near us, and there was this car on there, and I initially saw it and thought, yeah, it's alright, it's sort of quite cool. I don't know if I'd like to own one though, and it was a red Mini Cooper, and so I came downstairs and spoke to them about it, and then sort of decided, I don't know, so I went upstairs and had a think, and I don't know, I just sort of I stopped thinking about it, and then it sort of came back into my brain over the course of about 10 minutes to half an hour or so. So I thought, actually, you know what, that would be really cool having a Mini as a first car. As you know, well, I'm British and it's a Mini, and this Mini actually had some aftermarket rims which looked mad and way better than the ones on its stock. So yeah, I don't know, I love Minis in general, although before I didn't really know too much about them or do too much research into them, but I still thought they were cool. So I went back downstairs and I was like, can we go to the auction? And then we checked it out, and it was actually on that night or the next night or something like that, you know, but it was sort of a very, you know, close time period. So yeah, we sort of decided, let's go and have a look at it. So we got there and started generally looking around as well, and there was a really cool Dodge Ram truck which I was like absolutely in love with. I thought, you know, that was absolutely mad, but you know, again, not practical as a first car. And also we saw this really cool, I think it was a Golf or a Polo that it wasn't a GTI or an R, but it was like a really nice spec. It was white, and if I can find one similar I'll put it on screen now. I thought it was really mad, I thought that was really cool, but yeah, diverting my attention from the actual goal here. So we went over and we had a proper look around and we found it. Now, if I'm honest with you, it wasn't in the best condition, although I didn't know too much about paint at that time, like paint on cars or anything like that, but overall, I mean, everything was intact, everything was there, you know, there wasn't anything missing. It was like a full car, you know, there was no bumpers missing, there was no nothing like that. It was completely 100% fine, and it was mechanically fine as well. Although, was it? We'll find out in a little bit. But yeah, everything was there, it was all fine, and if I'm honest with you, as a first car, everything was there. It had an engine, a transmission, a body, and all the panels there, and none missing, so it looked pretty good. So we went back to the bidding and waited for it to start. So the way they did the auction at this place, they basically drove the car from where it was sitting with all the others sort of in a circular sort of a line. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever, but like a line of them that circled around ready to drive through where the actual sort of viewing area was when you were bidding. As you sort of sat in this, it was like a concrete sort of like incline that you'd sit on seats, a bit like a football arena or like a American football arena or something like that, and you'd sort of sit down and look at the car. So as it was sort of being driven round near the back, I went down, my dad, and had a listen to it, you know, and sort of tried to check out as, you know, best as it could at the time with our absolutely limited proper mechanical knowledge of whether it was sound or not. And I mean, it drove absolutely fine from what we saw, and it sounded alright. There was no like knocks or anything like that or anything weird going on, so we sort of ran back up and sat down, and after a few minutes, well, yeah, we bid it on the car and we won. So I think we paid between £1,100 and £1,200, which it was a really good deal, if I'm honest with you. It didn't look the best, but that generation of Mini was actually going for a lot more at the time than what we paid, although, as you know, the world is the world, there was a reason for that, or multiple reasons for that, which I'll get onto now. So the car, as you can see in some of the photos now, it had loads of lack appeal everywhere. Pretty much every single panel apart from the roof was affected by that, and there were little specks of where obviously stones had hit it and it started rusting. So yeah, it wasn't the best on the outside if you would look totally in detail, although still, for that money that I paid, it still run, it still drove, it's fine. Although, basically, the clutch was slipping, which we found out, I don't know, about a couple of days afterwards, as I literally sort of just started learning to drive properly at that point, you know, by myself without any sort of like instructor sort of pedal things beside me, and yeah, I sort of had real difficulty moving off, and I thought maybe it was just me, and then, you know, my dad kept trying it, and he said, yeah, something seems slightly wrong here, so we took it into the garage, and yeah, found out the clutch was slipping, and because, well, Mini is owned by BMW and manufactured by BMW, that wasn't a cheap fix. That literally cost about £800, so that was an absolute massive bummer, although even still, with our service, as we got the car properly serviced after that as well, it came to around around £2,000 sort of for the whole car and everything to be fine on it, which wasn't too bad if I'm honest with you as a first car. Like, you know, £2,000, and you know, it was all working, and it did continue to work for quite a while after that. Although it had its inherent problems, it had a core pack go out, and you know, so that had to be replaced with spark plugs. And generally, as sort of time went on, stuff started to go wrong with it, and obviously the lack appeal got quite a bit worse as time went by as well. Which was such a shame, because I literally found out, my mum sort of found out as she was doing some research into it, that you could have actually had it under warranty 10 months before we bought the car. You could have had it fully resprayed for absolutely free under warranty, which, why wouldn't you do that? Although I think the people that had previously owned that car just didn't really care about it, or someone along the line just didn't really care about it, as it just wasn't really well looked after. And although it literally had only about 60 or 70,000 miles or so, it was sort of on its way out because of its age and because of the way it had been treated. And I'd owned the car for sort of nearly 2 years at this point, as it was around sort of summer to autumn 2021. So I essentially, I decided that I wanted to sell it, as we were actually going to be moving to Northern Ireland next year as well. I'm here now, and I sort of wanted to sell it and then get my sort of second car and then move over here, as the market in England was a lot better than the market in Northern Ireland at that time. And I'd already decided that I wanted to get a BMW 1 Series as my next car. Now, I initially decided on something like an E87 1 Series, either like a 120D or a 125i. The 125i, I tried one and absolutely fell in love with it, but it wasn't going to be practical because of insurance and loads of stuff like that. And all the ones that I had sort of seen apart from the 125 were just sort of in bad condition, and I sort of decided to myself, either I wanted to get that specific 125i or look on at maybe an F series, and well, I couldn't get the 125i, so I looked on at the F series. So one came up that was literally in the same town that I bought my my first car from, and it was funny actually. The everything about it sort of pulled me towards it, and when I looked at it, and I absolutely loved it, and it was sort of like perfect for my needs. And so on the 25th of January, I bought it. So, you know, big purchase, but I bought it. It was actually around the same price as the 125i, so, you know, it was around the sort of 12 grand mark. But if I'm honest with you, I'd still stick with that decision that I've taken right now of getting this one rather than the 125i, as it's a lot newer, for number one. And number two, just generally, I think it was better suited, as I'm living sort of reasonably rural now, and as that car got older, the engine would have been fine, but if I needed to replace like big trim parts, I would have it serviced, you know, more regularly, because, you know, it's a 6-cylinder engine, it's a performance car, so, you know, I have to get it serviced more often. I didn't really want to be driving, you know, best part of like an hour, 2 hours to my nearest sort of dealer and getting it serviced every month or two. And if I'm honest with you guys, you already know the story from now. Sort of it carries on, and I sort of did my first maintenance wash video within like the first I think it was the first couple of weeks or month I got it. So I've got some really exciting stuff for the future, and I've done a lot of stuff to the car now, and I'm loving how it's looking. But thanks for watching, and if you did make it to the end, give it a thumbs up if you liked it. I guess it's just been a video that's going to be how long now? I don't even know, like 14 minutes of me just rambling about cars. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.